of us are actually like kayak kadang-kadang malu ya. Some of us like pretty shy like me. Jadi perkenalan dulu semuanya, halo. Aku di WhatsApp group juga ya teman-teman, di WhatsApp group Veganuary juga. So I'm joining the movement as well this month. Perkenalkan, namaku Tias. Aku CEO dan juga founder Sustaination. So a little bit about Sustaination kalau belum tahu. So Sustaination is a social enterprise which I founded back then in 2018, tahun 2018. Hi Irene, recipe-nya to die for Yes, yeah, thank you. So back then in 2018, I feel like I need to do something, right? Jadi 3 tahun yang lalu itu ketika aku selesai kuliah, so I finished my study di Belanda from Sustainable Energy Technology. Dan back then itu aku selesai master studiku itu projectnya tentang renewable energy di Pulau Sumba. Jadi Indonesia ini kalau teman-teman belum tahu, kita tuh punya sebuah program untuk memperkenalkan Sumba dengan program 100% Renewable Energy Island in Sumba gitu. Jadi tahun 2025 itu planningnya Indonesia itu mau power Sumba Island ini dengan 100% renewable energy. Benchmarknya itu kayak Pulau Samso di Denmark. Nah, I was joining this program lah waktu itu. Tapi kemudian kayak heartbreaking gitu loh, karena susah sekali gitu, karena there's so many policy involved gitu untuk in order to make this program work gitu back then. Akhirnya aku memilih untuk kayaknya kesabaranku nggak di situ ya, nggak di public policy. So I decided to just leave the program to their expert gitu ya. Terus aku mikir apa ya yang bisa aku lakukan gitu. Dan waktu itu aku masih tinggal di Belanda dan aku melihat dari kategori sampah yang dipilah di Belanda itu ada 7, dan salah satu yang terbanyak itu adalah sampah tipe yang residual gitu, artinya nggak bisa diapa-apain teman-teman, nggak bisa dipilah, nggak bisa di recycle, so basically they just send it to incinerator, jadi dibakar aja gitu. Dan itu jumlahnya sangat banyak setiap minggu. Jadi agak bingung ya waktu itu, wah ternyata sampahnya itu banyakan tuh plastik kemasan yang nggak penting kayak gitu. Akhirnya, so I started share this story through my Instagram, tapi malu gitu. So I was a little bit shy back then karena takut dikira aktivis atau apa gitu. Mungkin dari beberapa teman di sini juga merasa malu atau takut ya dianggap kok terlalu gimana gitu ya, apalagi kalau sharing di personal account gitu. Akhirnya aku creating another Instagram account called Sustaination. Sebenarnya Sustaination itu adalah kependekannya itu dari Sustainable Nation. So goalnya adalah aku ingin berkontribusi untuk membuat Indonesia ini menjadi negara yang lebih sustainable one step at a time. Hence it's Sustainable Nation, and in short it's Sustaination gitu. Jadi mungkin itu nanti kalau kepanjangan Nala nggak kebagian. Thank you so much.
That was really, really interesting, and it's awesome to hear the story coming from you. And I want to tap into why some of us may be scared to label ourselves as activists, because there is a social stigma, I believe, when it comes to creating change, right? So we're going to get into that in a moment. Tapi dulu, Nala, tell us who you are, say hi, and what you do at Green Welfare.
All right, hi everyone. It's really great to spend my Thursday night in this panel. So I'll introduce a little bit about Green Welfare and myself. So right now, I'm a last year high school student studying here at Jakarta, and I founded Green Welfare Indonesia around 2020. So we're pretty new, but I'm very excited to keep on growing Green Welfare and the community that's behind our cause. So just a little background about how I got into the climate movement. It's a pretty cliche story, because the real reason, or like the real cause of how I got into the climate movement was because I watched Cowspiracy. There was that one time I watched Cowspiracy in 2019, actually, before the pandemic. And Cowspiracy was like was the starting of my activism. I kind of went vegetarian overnight after watching that, which is not recommended, because it needs to have a baby step transition when you're trying to transition to a vegetarian or vegan. And from there, I kind of just found my passion about food emissions in general. And I saw that a lot of people weren't aware of this issue, especially in Asia, or especially here at Jakarta. I saw that not a lot of people know that the things they eat actually is contributing to global greenhouse gas emissions, even though not directly, but the supply chain that goes throughout what you eat, how you get your food into the table. There's a very long, unsustainable supply chain. So from there, I realized that I really wanted to bring up this issue. We talk about plastic, we talk everything that's about sustainable living, but we don't really talk about the food we eat, at least around my community. So from there, I kind of started to do my own research about veganism, how it connects to climate change. And from there, I started to grow green welfare. That's where green welfare started. Around April 2020 is when I made the concept of green welfare, what we do, everything. And we finally got launched our youth organization on May 2020. So green welfare first started as a really short-term project because I was really scared that of running an organization, or even though at a small scale organization. We started only with 5 people who were my friends, and now we're around over 100 young volunteers at Green Welfare, which I'm really happy to see the growth. And now our mission that started only to focus about livestock agriculture and climate change, we kind of expanded, and we talk about everything that's related to sustainable agriculture, food security, as well as also a little bit of the social part in green welfare. So we also talk about giving back to the community. So that's kind of where green welfare, the name itself comes from, the welfare of people, and green, which means nature. So that's how green welfare was named after. So yeah, now we basically focus on sustainable agriculture, urban agriculture, food security, and we also have our newest mission, which is climate education, kind of like what Youthtopia does with their master classes, but we do it in a mentorship program. So we have a climate education mentorship program that runs for around 2 months with great mentors, and we have live Zoom classes and live mentoring sessions. Reason why I wanted to talk about climate education, because here in Asia, we don't really have that a lot informally. And even if there is, which there are a lot of climate education platforms here in Asia, but most of them are very inaccessible. So we made Green Welfare's mentorship program all accessible to the mentees. It's all free and anyone can apply, but of course we only choose 20, and usually we have around 100-ish applications, so we only choose the best 20 mentees for that. So yeah,
wow, so much to do, so much to do, but also you're doing so much already, Nala. And I love that we also heard the story behind the names of your organizations, Green Welfare and Sustaination. Like, hello, amazing names. And both of you, Nala and Tias, it's really, for me to be able to moderate this session, I'm sedikit gugup because you are both such big role models for me. So thank you for this opportunity also to facilitate this conversation. Nala, you mentioned a really great documentary, and I want to make sure that our audience goes away tonight with some tangible things to do. You mentioned Cowspiracy. Tias, what is your go-to documentary about the climate crisis or about the food, the agricultural industry, literally anything about sustainability? What's your go-to documentary?
I think all of you should watch this movie called Story of Plastics. I'm not sure if it's available in Netflix or I don't know which platform, but I think it used to be available. It was made available in YouTube for a couple of times, but it's a very good documentary. So yeah.
Okay, awesome.
The Story of Plastic.
There you have 2 recommendations, everyone. Cowspiracy and The Story of Plastic. And I'll give you another one. Forks Over Knives was a really good one. Seaspiracy was a really good one. We're going into that all, Seaspiracy.
I actually want to add one, Melati.
Yeah,
let's go. Should watch Kiss the Ground. It's a very great documentary about agriculture. They talk about how they give a solution how we can transform the whole food system into a sustainable one. So yeah.
Great recommendation. So I hope you guys wrote those down because they are definitely a great tip. I see Pat here is on the go, giving it in the chat right there. Story of Plastic. There you go. A link ready to watch after this talk. So stay with us, guys. Tias, I wanted to go back to you. Can you tell us a little bit? Arti sustainability untuk Tias is, finish the sentence.
So sustainability is for me has a huge meaning ya. Maksudnya sangat-sangat beragam pengertiannya. But for me, I think it's to be able to pass on what we have right now to the future generations, not less than what we have right now. That's what I think about sustainability.
Nala, I'm going to go to you because you're the youngest one on this panel, and I want to get a little bit of an insight of the evolution of sustainability, right? Karena sekarang, when I think about sustainability, I always think it's become such a buzzword, you know? Do we really know what sustainability is? Nala, speak to us about your experience, like growing up in the world where it's changing so fast. What's the evolution you see when it comes to sustainability?
Well, I mean, I just jumped into, the whole green movement, not as long as you, obviously, Mel. So the evolution that I could see is that we do kind of take the word sustainability as a tokenism for some reason. Sometimes, we use sustainability. Sometimes it's either underused or it's overused. It's either of the both. But for me personally, I see sustainability as an investment because every time we do something that's berkelanjutan, it has a long-term effect. You also get long-term benefits. And that's how I think people should see sustainability. We don't see it sesuatu yang bakal raguin kita. It's going to give us lots of benefits in the long term. And I think when we're talking about sustainability, people always kind of relate sustainability or like sustainable lifestyle with cost. And people see that sustainable lifestyle is very expensive, or it has a lot of, very expensive and very inaccessible for especially low community. But I feel like sustainability is an investment. It will kind of take more effort and more money at the first, but it's going to be very worth it because it has a very, very everlasting effect. I think that's my opinion on it.
And it's interesting that you mentioned the short term versus long term. I think there's still so much work that we need to do. Tapi one thing you did not mention, which I'd be eager to get your thoughts on, Nala, you mentioned sustainability is attached to cost, and I guess in a way similar to cost, it's also attached to a lot of sacrifice, right? Especially for youth activists. Now, we may have some youngsters watching tonight's conversation. So Nala, do you feel, I always get this question, I started when I was 12, now I'm 21, and I always get this question, do you feel like you have to sacrifice your childhood to become an activist?
I feel like being an activist is a part of your childhood. It has to be a part of your childhood. So, what I like to say is that your activism should never be separated from your personal life. It has to be a part of your personal life. Because a lot of people, they keep those two faces very separate. So they're like not, they don't take their activism world into their personal life. But then when you're advocating for something, it has a sentimental attachment to your personal life. So I think no one should sacrifice anything when it comes to activism and having a great childhood. I feel like, Mel, you had a really great childhood because of your activism, right? So we have a real life example here, guys, that activism and personal life does not have to be separated to have a good childhood.
Love it. Tias, I'm going to go back to you because when you were introducing yourself, you told the story of how you were shy of going out there. You made another Instagram account because there's this stigma that activists, especially here in Indonesia, there's a negative connotation between that. So what's your take on that? And how can we start to make sure that everyone feels safe to go out there and create change, whether they label themselves an activist or not?
Yeah, I think aku setuju banget sih. I definitely agree with Nala. So when I first started Sustaination, I feel shy, right? So I made another account which like a separate name. I had two faces, right, between Sustaination and my Instagram account. So when I talk about sustainability, I do it in Sustaination account. When I talk my personal life, I do it in my personal account, which doesn't make any sense right now because I'm doing it like in my daily life. I live like this. I live like I'm doing all day to day in my daily life sustainable living. So why not I do it in my Instagram account and my personal one. So yeah, it comes to me like gimana ya, kayak nggak make sense gitu. Sebenarnya aku setuju banget sama Nala gitu. Ketika kita when we choose to be an activist, sebenarnya nggak perlu kayak jadi gimana ya, kayak kita demo gitu kan, karena konotasi aktivis itu memang cenderung kayak demo kan, karena what we know aktivis itu ya demo ke jalan gitu kan, but it's not always like mahasiswa yang demo ke jalan. When we deliver the message, when we talk about the issues, environmental issues, anything that we think it's important to spread it out there, we become an activist gitu. Jadi walaupun isunya tentang makanan, tentang kesehatan, tentang mental health, whatever it is, itu sebenarnya kita nggak langsung jadi aktivis gitu tanpa kita sadari. Dan sebenarnya juga nggak perlu in a hard way juga gitu, karena waktu itu aku pikir kayak ini harus hard way or kayak harus begitu gitu kan pandangan kita terhadap aktivis. Tapi ya of course orang tuh nggak suka disuruh. So what I do itu adalah kayak mempraktekkan gitu. Jadi I set an example, so I tell the story, my own story. Dan aku nggak pernah memaksa orang untuk mengikuti apa yang aku lakukan gitu. Mungkin aku memberikan opsi-opsi dan memberikan fakta-fakta bahwa we have to be able to do this right now, karena kalau enggak in the next 8 to 10 years we're doomed man gitu. So what I did itu aku menyampaikan fakta aja gitu, dan I asked them to change their lifestyles itu in a softer way. In a way kayak ya aku melakukan ini karena underlying reasonnya adalah aku mau menurunkan bumi yang baik ke anakku gitu. So I want my kid to be able to see fish, not trash in the ocean gitu. Aku mau anakku to be able to see rhinos in the forest, nggak di kebun binatang. So something like that. So I share what I feel, I share my stories in a way kayak orang tuh jadi lebih relate gitu, dan jadi lebih bisa relate ke kehidupannya, dan akhirnya mereka jadi bisa berubah gitu sih Mel. Jadi yang sekarang aku lakukan, so I also share my vegan recipes di Instagram aku share produk-produk sustainable yang aku suka gitu. In a way kayak ya harus dilakukan ya, karena nggak bisa separate account gitu ya. Karena ya harus set an example right gitu. Jadi buat teman-teman jangan malu seperti aku. Karena itu deh kan kita anyway menjalankan itu gitu.
Tapi I think what's inspiring about your story is that maybe you were malu at first, tapi it didn't stop you. You still created another Instagram page, and look at where you are now. So also keep in mind, everybody, that there's a journey. When we talk about sustainability, it's a lifelong journey, and you're going to keep learning. Even if you think you're an expert now, there's always going to be a new lesson, right? Tapi Tias, you brought the one side where this class is all about how to encourage your family, your friends, those around you to create a positive impact, right? And you brought one side of the story of leading by example, inspiring others by sharing your story. Tapi as anak muda, Gen Z, one of the most frustrating things is that change is happening too slowly.
Slow, yeah. I agree.
Nala, talk to us about your experience in this, because what do you think is the best technique to get people to change?
I mean, personally, for me as approach, because actually, Mel, one thing I realized when I was at Youthtopia and I met the kids at Youthtopia, they're very different from my friends. I asked the kids at Youthtopia about what do you think if people bash you for being vegan, and all of them had so much positive comments, whereas today actually I went out with my friends and they were all mocking me about being vegan. I know it's a joke, but I mean we can see the difference, right? So I mean, for me personally, it's about juga lingkungan. Dan how we address a certain topic. Mungkin the kids at Youthtopia, why they're very positive about veganism, and they try to see the positive side of every person's environmentalism or activism, is because emang dari kecil tuh mereka they're already being approached with this type of lifestyle in a positive way, and whereas here my friends, they're very unfamiliar with the word vegan, so they just bash it in a negative way. So I feel like approach is very important. Sama aja, if we want to buy a new phone, pasti Samsung sama Apple juga they're gonna be against each other at how they market their new products, right? So that's how we also need to look at an environmentalism or activism way. We need to be able to have the best marketing strategy to spread positive message, but obviously in a good way, obviously not in a greenwashing way. I think itu sih mindset juga paling penting, karena there's no use if we don't want to grow, we don't want to learn, we just want to be there, we just want to stick with what we know, and we don't want to gain new knowledge. I think for me personally, why my friends are also very denial is because they don't want to know that this fact exists, that maybe a plant-based meal does have lower carbon emissions than meat-based meals, so then they're just denial of it. So I think mindsets are very important, how you approach a person, and also how you take to account of a certain lesson or a certain fact. We need to be able to see everything from a positive view. Very important. And I think right now for Gen Z, the word sustainable living, they're already familiar with it, but they don't really know they don't know how urgent it is. They don't feel like it's urgent. That's why I say that we need to be able to take account the climate emergency like it's also your personal emergency. Karena misalnya kalau kita punya masalah pribadi dan itu urgent, pasti kita juga we want to solve it as much as possible. That's how I think we should see the climate emergency. We need to be able to see that the climate crisis is also a personal emergency that we need to be able to contribute and, have our say in it, and, reverse all of the solutions and take it into account. So,
okay. Well, thank you, Nala. And also I hear the urgency, and that's where Gen Z is represented, seeing that the change is so necessary, but understanding that personal connection. Now, Agustini, I see you commented, and I just wanted to say, keep sharing. You're doing amazing. And someone out there is going to see your post and think, thanks to Agustini today, I feel confident to make a difference. So keep on going, Agustini. Kendrick, you also baru komen pertanyaan, and I think the first one is for Tias, about sampah. Do you want to talk to us, Tia, a little bit about Kendrick's first question?
Yeah, sure. Hi, Kendrick. Bagaimana cara meyakinkan orang-orang untuk membiasakan diri memilah sampah? Karena sebagian orang biasanya ingin membuang sampah di tempat sampah tanpa mempedulikan jenis sampah yang ada. So it's very great questions. One of the frequently asked question actually. Dan ini sangat relate dengan how we talk to people. Karena tadi Nala juga sudah mention ya soal the urgency about making this issue as our personal urgency. Tapi yang aku mau juga highlight adalah the way we talk to people, karena aku percaya bahwa there is always one reason for people to be able to make change, right? Dan setiap orang itu beda-beda reasoningnya. So what we do, kan kita di sini yang ceritanya tahu ya kalau kita harus bertindak saat ini sekarang gitu ya, mulai dari sekarang. Tapi nggak semua orang merasakan urgency itu karena merasa nggak relate gitu, karena merasa bukan itu personal urgency mereka. So what I want to highlight is for us has to be able to deliver this message dan be on their shoes gitu. Jadi misalnya nih aku ngobrol sama Nala, for example. Lalu Nala ini concern dengan kesehatan. So what we want to deliver this message is environmental issues or sustainable issues through health issues gitu. Jadi misalnya kita sampaikan kalau kamu buang sampah sembarangan, for example, you will pollute the oceans with microplastic, and then this microplastic will goes into our food system, and then you will eat it, and it becomes one of our food in daily basis gitu. Jadi kita bisa kasih tuh riset-riset, banyak banget kan research yang udah bilang kalau kita itu misalnya setiap minggu kita consume like 5 gram microplastic setiap minggu, itu segede kartu kredit. So 5 grams. Another research found juga microplastics itu udah ditemukan di placenta bayi, terus di jaringan organ, sama di pup. Jadi di pup kita itu udah ditemukan di microplastik di pup kita gitu. Itu researchnya ada di Austria. Tapi kalau teman-teman nonton, ini another documentary ya, namanya Pulau Plastik, itu dari Bali juga itu dari Bali. Mereka itu melakukan perjalanan dan melakukan research juga, dan kandungan mikroplastik yang ada di pup orang Indonesia itu lebih tinggi 3 kali lipat daripada pup yang diriset di Austria, paper yang dipublish di Austria. Jadi mungkin bisa masuk situ. Maybe if your friend or your family concerned about animals, then we go to that animal or kayak misalnya penyu gitu ya. Penyu kan ada yang video yang viral banget itu yang straws coming out from their nose. Nah mungkin mereka jadi kasihan gitu kalau misalnya mereka pencinta binatang. Selain health issues, animals, and then maybe if your friend is very religious, maybe we can come in with some sort of like religious side gitu. Jadi I don't know, if you're Muslims, you can cite from Quran, or if you're Christian, you can cite it from Bible. Kayak kalau di agamaku, aku kebetulan Islam, dan dari salah satu yang aku percaya itu adalah menjaga bumi itu adalah satu kewajiban orang Muslim sebagai khalifah di bumi. Jadi itu salah satu yang aku sampaikan actually ke mamaku. Karena mamaku tuh kayak bener-bener plastik gitu kalau belanja. Dan dia tuh suka pengajian gitu. Dia suka datang ke pengajian. And then one day, I try to tell her about this fact gitu. Terus dia langsung kayak merasa bersalah gitu. Kayak, oh my God, what did I do? Kayak gitu. Jadi, imagine that every person itu punya pandangan yang berbeda. Jadi kita harus coba dengan cara yang berbeda buat orang-orang yang berbeda gitu. Kalau orang yang concern kesehatan, kita masuk lewat isu kesehatan. Kalau agama, kita lewat agama. Kalau animal, kita lewat animal. Kalau misalnya ada isu-isu yang lain, ya mungkin bisa ke sana. Nggak perlu harus lingkungan kok. Atau misalnya kayak, oh lagi vegan, lagi ngetrend, lagi hype nih, ya bisa aja nggak apa-apa, why not kan? Gitu kayak banyak artis yang lagi vegan ya, why not? It's a good thing gitu kan, it's a good trend, so why not gitu kan? Kayak gitu sih mungkin. Nah ini termasuk kayak memilah sampah gitu ya. Jadi kita harus kasih tahu dulu gitu underlying reasonnya itu apa, dan yang penting kita kasih contoh dulu ya. Jangan kita kayak, kok lo nggak milah sampah sih, tapi kita nggak milah sampah juga. So we have to be the right example for this person gitu. Kita pilah sampahnya, dan akhirnya eventually kita bisa mengajak. Jadi bukan menyuruh gitu, tapi mengajak si orang ini, entah keluarga entah teman, untuk memilah sampah bersama dengan kita gitu. I hope it answered your question, yeah, Kendrick.
I definitely think it answered. I was writing so many notes. I was like, yes, Tias, keep going. So insightful. Thank you, Tias. Nala, I think you could answer perfectly pertanyaan kedua dari Kendrick tentang why some organizations are, promoting veganism or talking about the environmental impacts, but some who are even still in the environmental world are not talking about veganism. How do we kind of campaign about it and still get the support we need?
Okay, I do agree that not all environmental organizations talk about food emissions or livestock agriculture in general. Tapi sebenarnya I know for a fact that because ini kalau ngomongin organisasi lingkungan yang mungkin di darat, either they are sponsored by businesses or corporates that are supporting livestock agriculture, or it's not that much big of an issue in their country. For example, Greenpeace Indonesia, mereka belum pernah ngelakuin kampanye tentang masalah livestock, karena emang deforestasi di Indonesia kan yang paling besar contributornya palm oil. And so they don't really talk about livestock agriculture karena di Indonesia sendiri we don't eat as much meat as it is in the Western world. So what I can say is that we do have some dirty sides, you know, in the organizations that don't talk about livestock agriculture. Karena, I mean, the possibilities are a lot, but most of the possibilities menurut aku sendiri is because either they are sponsored by businesses and corporates that do support livestock agriculture, or they don't see it as an urgent issue. But what I see is that, let's say for Greenpeace Indonesia, we can't say that they don't support livestock. I mean, they are supporting livestock agriculture. Maybe it's just because karena emang di negara kita, di negara Indonesia, emang livestock agriculture is not a big concern, you know. But when we see Greenpeace Indonesia, mereka tuh bener-bener kampanye tentang oligarki and how it connects to the environment, dan juga ngomongin tentang palm oil and how it connects to the environment, because emang itu yang that's the very biggest core of Indonesia's problems when it comes to climate change. So I do think those are my opinions on it. And it says here juga bagaimana cara kita juga bisa begitu tanpa harus mendapatkan kritik negatif. I feel like it depends on if you're seeing from an organizational point of view. If you want to address a certain issue, you also need to be able to know your target audience. Karena nggak mungkin the materials about livestock agriculture sekarang aku bawa ke anak SD. They're not going to understand what I'm talking about. You know, carbon emissions. Oh, they emit 3 kilograms per. They're not going to answer that. They're not going to know what I'm talking about. So I think the how you approach and know your target audience is the best way, and how you get a positive outcome when you're trying to educate someone or when you're trying to bring an issue to a certain community. Karena juga komunitas in the world, we have so much different communities, and we need to be able to learn how to approach them in their best way. Karena nggak semua, we can't use the same tactic to approach every single industry, every single target audience with the issue you're trying to bring.
Gak bisa copy paste. We live in a culture where we copy paste a lot. Tapi if we want to be effective, tidak bisa. So I want to talk about the role, peran media in this whole situation, because Nala, you mentioned it multiple times, the way we approach, the way we storytell. And yes, you also mentioned that when you go into communities or when you talk to your mom, right, there's a way that we have to invite people to create change. And talking about the topic that this class is for, how do we get people engaged? It's not only from an individual to another individual, but we're also going to discuss about what the systemic changes are that need to be in place. And the media, especially in today's world, I mean, we have this constantly at us. We have the radio in the car always on, the TV, the articles that we're reading, social media. There's so much information everywhere. What is the role of social media? Siapa mau dulu?
I'll go first. I know for a fact that social media can be good, can be bad also. It depends how you use it. I feel like for environmental media here, or environmental topics within the media, it can go both ways. Banyak banget yang suka bikin, they talk about climate karena emang itu lagi topic hot, so they just want attention, you know, and they have a lot of clickbaits too. I think, Melati, you've had a lot of experience with bad and both good and bad social media, right? Social media bashing. So I feel that social media has a really big role karena we can't live without social media right now. Even I think 90% of the news that I know is from social media. Like, no one, I'm so sorry for news anchors. We don't look at news anymore, unfortunately. And also newspapers, we don't really look at newspapers anymore. So I feel like social media has a really big role. And for media itself, I do hope that they always try to portray every single climate news, not only because it's the hot news, but also because it's urgent, and I feel like they need to also be true as much as possible to the news, because spreading fake news is even worse than not talking about the topic itself if it was true. So I think social media has a big role in this. It's just how they choose to portray the news, because banyak banget juga kayak kemarin our menteri she talked about how zero deforestasi itu nggak boleh berhenti, deforestasi nggak boleh berhenti atas pembangunan Indonesia, right? She used her Twitter to spread that message. But yesterday, I actually went to KLHK for an event, and she said that, sorry, not she herself, but one of her staff said that it was not her exact words. So her social media team was the one who interpreted it wrongly. And that's kind of a little image about how social media is here today. So we try to interpret a good message, but it comes off wrongly. So I think communication is also very, very, very important when it comes to how we want to portray a certain news in social media, especially about climate change. Because when we're talking about climate change, it's all scientific, right? It needs to have 100% facts. And when we're talking about science, there needs to be no bad science in the role.
Yeah. It's definitely interesting you bringing up the point of what happened here in Indonesia. It also, when we talk about that story and that example, we also have to think about accountability, right? And Tias, maybe as a mom, you can also shed light on what you think the role of social media is, because we live in a clickbait culture. But with clickbait comes also cancel culture. So as soon as we're in that process of learning, right, going back to the activist who's just starting, who's just trying to spread awareness, like Agustina shared in the chat, baru mulai, and then they get shut down so quickly. How do we go forward?
Yeah, I think I definitely agree with Nala. Social media and media in general has a very important role in spreading the message and increasing the awareness, especially to make this issue becoming popular in our society. Karena sustainability sama isu-isu lingkungan itu kan bukan isu yang populer, kan? Kayak I don't want to listen to this cat news. I just want to listen artis nikah sama siapa, artis melahirkan, kayak gitu kan. That's what our society wants to look at the media. That is why the mainstream media give it to us. Kan kayak berita-berita artis itu kan sangat-sangat populer. Jadi we have to be able to work with the big media, mainstream media, to have this kind of news, environmental news in the everyday, in everyday post. Itu salah satu misinya Sustaination juga. That is why if you look at in our account, kita tuh berusaha banget masuk ke media mainstream kayak YouTube, terus TikTok, semua social media we have post di setiap sosial media, karena misinya adalah kita mau membuat isu sustainability ini bisa dinikmatin oleh semua orang yang pakai sosial media dimanapun gitu, dengan yang in a lighter way lah ya, nggak bisa gitu orang Indonesia dikasih science facts, numbers, whatsoever, grafik itu nggak bisa, harus pakai isu yang viral, pakai apa sih sound ya, sekarang IG Reel sama TikTok gitu, pakai sound yang viral kayak gitu. Dan yang mesti dijaga juga adalah yaitu tadi clickbait culture. Sometimes I have to admit ya, kalau di Sustaination tuh kadang-kadang kita juga pakai taktik itu, karena mau nggak mau orang kita itu memang sukanya clickbait gitu. Jadi what we want itu orang masuk dulu deh gitu, karena kita di sini kan memperjuangkan suatu hal yang kita anggap baik. Yang penting orang masuk dulu, and then we hope they want to read our article, they want to watch our video till the end gitu. Jadi kadang-kadang ya kita menyampaikannya ya agak-agak clickbait lah ya gitu, kayak agak-agak clickbait, dan itu sometimes it works gitu. Jadi itu sih yang penting. Kalau dari Sustaination sih kita sendiri yang penting kita berusaha untuk spread out the message out there. Yang nggak boleh itu clickbaitnya bohong gitu ya, kayak bohong, kayak yang misalnya isi beritanya apa, judulnya apa. Nah itu kita nggak pernah lakukan sih. Kadang-kadang kita ngelakukannya kayak some part of the videos kita cut yang kontroversial, kita jadiin reels, and then if you want to watch the entire video, you go to our YouTube. Nah, kadang-kadang itu kayak make some controversial comments sih, I'm not gonna lie, tapi ada beberapa yang kayak gitu, dan it actually, you know, kayak start the conversation. That's what we want gitu kan. Orang bertanya, orang memulai percakapan, karena kalau nggak viral dulu itu nggak ada percakapan di situ kan. Jadi ya gitu sih, it's a mixed feeling ya about clickbait culture itu. Jadi it's a good and it's a bad thing gitu. Jadi yeah, we have to keep it balanced.
Yeah, but I think anyways, what you're doing at Sustaination with the contents, I was checking out before this conversation, the reels on the page, and it is very inviting and you want to learn more. So I guess everybody here tonight just had a little marketing 101 from Katias about how to create that hook and invite people in. Remember, if you have questions, we have about a couple more minutes left. Patricia, you wrote in the comments here, in a developing country like Indonesia, especially, I think there's this notion that the economy should be prioritized over the climate crisis. To what extent and how are your organizations work with government and private sector to convince that green economy is possible or is the way? Nala, do you want to kick us off and then we'll go to Tias?
I think personally for me, the economy should be green at the first place, because when we're talking about economy, the definition itself is, you know, careful management of available sources. So I feel like the economy harusnya gede warna-warnanya, ada blue economy, sekarang juga ada green economy. I feel like the word economy itself already has a definition that we need to be able to have, you know, more a shared value concept. We need to be able to reimagine capitalism, and we need to also be able to learn that when we want to reach sustainability, we can't only have economic development. We need to be able to also have environmental development and also social development along the way. So I think personally for me, green economy is something that dari pertama kita juga udah we captured the definition wrongly. So it's time for us to redefine the term economy itself right now. And I think people are already starting to. I feel like all nations are already starting to understand that it's not that the word economy is bad or the concept of economy is bad, is that how we perceive it and how kita jalan ekonomi dari dulu tuh emang udah salah at the first place, in my opinion. I think that like what I said, if you guys know about the donut economy framework, I think that's one of the best ways that we can redefine the word economy itself. I think more to that, pasti orang juga bilang kayak, kalau ekonomi, kalau misalnya kita just care about the environmental wise, entar profitnya gimana? That's why going back, when we're talking about shared value, like I mentioned, we need to be able to also see that when we're talking about economy, kita juga harus ada beberapa faktor we have to consider. Personally, for me, I read this really great book. It's literally called Reimagining Capitalism. They mentioned that there's 3 ways that businesses can create a shared value, which is first tentang business opportunities, social needs, and corporate assets and expertise. So when we're reimagining capitalism in a certain economy or in a certain business, banyak banget benefitsnya juga, dari business opportunities, dari the social needs that you're going to give out. And, you know, we need to be able to see that businesses that implement green economy harus menjadi attractive to investors. That's kind of what I learned from that book. And I just wanted to share a little bit about that. And for green welfare itself, I think the only way that we're trying to give out for now about green economy is through our climate education. We actually had just a batch yesterday talking 1 month about green economy.
Now, spoken like a true Gen Zer, instead of seeing things as the linear traditional way, we're bringing it circular and round. Yes, what about you? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, wow, Nala. I was going to answer that, but yeah, thanks for summarizing everything. But I did definitely agree. What we portray as economy is now is just so wrong in so many levels. the way we perceive price is also wrong in so many ways. Kebetulan kemarin aku baru bahas di Instagramku karena talking about sustainable products itu banyak banget orang yang bilang kalau sustainable product is so expensive, I cannot afford it. Then when they say something like that, I always ask, yang itu mahal atau yang sekarang terlalu murah? And then they got confused. Karena yang sekarang itu menurut aku terlalu murah karena the way we see price itu cuman pricing about the products. The way they put the price, the companies put pricing on the products is just kayak operational cost, the apa itu namanya harga pokok produksi ya kan, dari the cost of goods kayak gitu, tanpa melihat sisi kayak limbahnya ini diolahnya gimana, kemudian kalau ada pencemaran itu nanti efeknya kemana, apakah membuat orang-orang di sekitar itu kehilangan pekerjaan, apakah orang-orang di sekitar itu jadi sakit kemudian mereka harus bayar uang ke rumah sakit, ke puskesmas gitu, atau mereka harus I don't know, things like that, itu mereka nggak di-consider di dalam harga sebuah produk. Itu kalau teman-teman belum tahu, itu namanya biaya eksternal. So it's an external cost gitu, yang nggak ada di dalam sebuah harga gitu. Harga yang sekarang itu biasanya kayak cuman operational cost, terus abis itu harga produk, kemudian profit, some margins, terus itu pricing. Yang external cost itu kayak nggak dihitung gitu. Ini terbukti karena kayak gini, misalnya teman-teman beli sampo saset gitu, atau things in sachet lah ya, basically di pouch gitu. Terus itu kan harga sampo saset tuh sekarang berapa sih? 2.000 gitu ya, mungkin ya 2.000-an gitu. Lalu ketika ngobrol, I actually work for FMCG company before I went to master degree ya. Jadi aku tahu all the cost structure. Ketika kita ngobrol sama FMCG companies, all the FMCG companies lah, mereka selalu bilang kalau ganti kemasan yang sustainable itu akan terlalu mahal buat mereka. Gitu. Jadi kemasan sustainable ini it's not going to make the company profitable, atau mereka nggak bisa match the market gitu. Tapi at the same time ketika kita bilang ya udah kalau gitu kalian harus put the cost of collecting their waste and recycling them gitu. Jadi kayak ngambil lagi tuh sampah sasetnya terus diolah jadi produk atau di recycle. Mereka juga nggak mau karena akan jadi mahal gitu. So both ways itu mahal. Tapi yang satunya waktu mereka pakai saset plastik dan nggak harus collect the waste and recycling them into something, itu kan jadi nggak ada cost of operational ya di situ. Operational costnya jadi nggak kehitung. That's apa namanya what we call externalities gitu. When all the externalities is internalized, it becomes very expensive. Kayak misalnya batu bara, listrik kita, itu kan sekarang kayak murah banget. It's actually one of the speakers di Green Welfare TED Talks kemarin itu mention about the price of coal electricity is super cheap, but it's actually super expensive as well kalau kita internalize all the external costs in the price gitu. Jadi the way we see pricing on the products is also wrong in so many levels right now gitu. Jadi itu satu dulu ya yang harus kita pahami bersama gitu. Jadi kalau misalnya ngomongin green economy itu harusnya nggak ada karena there is no economy on that planet, right? So it has to be green economy gitu. Jadi itu yang harus kita pahami bersama. Dan yang dilakukan sama Sustaination itu sekarang kita banyak edukasi ya. So across 360 social media channel itu kita selalu ngomongin what we can do as an individual, and at the same time kita tuh kalau sebagai organisasi dan at the same time kita social enterprise, kita itu suka diundang sebenarnya untuk bikin join FGD sama government, terus ikut-ikut apa sih namanya kayak program-program test trial government kayak gitu. Nah, kita selalu datang sih kalau ada undangan gitu. Kalau misalnya kita harus creating policy, I think it's not the place for Sustaination, but we always support teman-teman kita yang lain yang kayak gerakan Indonesia diet kantong plastik, atau maybe bye plastic bags, one of the organizations that push the government to eliminate plastic waste, right? So we always support that kind of organization that we can work together hand in hand to push the government to put the policies that support environmental policies kayak gitu sih untuk sekarang.
So in short, we need a deep values systems change, right? And that starts with all of us. And one of the incredible things that we all can do, starting ourselves is this Veganuary campaigns or campaigns like this, right? Right now, it's 1 meal a day out of the 3 meals we have. Next, it can be an entire day, all the 3 meals. And from there, you move on and move on. So I think as a reflection and coming to a summary, it's really about how can we encourage and foster a community where we're supporting each other to create massive change. Tias and Nala, thank you so much for your time and for discussing with us today. Before we go on, before we take a photo with everybody, can you give your last one piece of advice, just one, short and sweet? What would your takeaway to the audience joining us tonight be? Tias, we'll start with you and then we'll bump to Nala.
Yeah, the most important thing is that we have to change our mindset and don't wait, the earth starting to doom. So just start today, start from now, and start from yourself. And jangan tunggu kayak journey-nya itu sempurna, because it's a lifetime journey. So what it is important is the progress, not perfection. Jadi mulai hari ini, teman-teman.
Yay! Nala, what's your cherry on top?
I agree with Katjas. I think adding to that, when we're talking about climate activism, know that there's no right or wrong way in doing so. I feel that everyone has their own way of doing their activism. Even if you're an artist, you can bring out all of those visualization that kind of summarizes how the climate world is right now, and that can create a lot of awareness to lots of people. So this is what I always like to say, is that we don't need one person doing everything, but we need everyone to do something. And yeah, that's a little bit from me.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Nala. Thank you so much, Tias. And terima kasih for all of you who joined us today in this discussion for the Green class on climate activism as part of the Green family. I'm going to pass it back to the team to coordinate the photo, but it was an absolute pleasure to host tonight's session.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much to Melati, Tias, dan Nala. I think hari ini chatnya nggak terlalu ramai karena everyone was in awe with what you guys have to share. Lagi proses dulu nih all of these new ideas. Especially kalau for me personally is when Tias shared about how we look at price. There's certainly something wrong. Very inspired with what you shared today. Thank you so much, Kak. And thank you so much, Nala. Thank you so much to Melati as well. Teman-teman, yuk kita foto bareng. Nyalain kameranya. Tuh, muka-muka yang lagi kaget-kaget semua. Oke. Aku foto ya. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Oke, udah banyak. Abis kelas yang ini, this is the 5th out of 6 class yang kita akan adakan selama Veganuary. Yang terakhir ada kelas workout, kita bakal olahraga dan berkeringat bersama di hari Sabtu nanti. Tias juga tepuk tangan, nanti join ya. Sampai jumpa lagi teman-teman. Thank you.
Bye-bye, terima kasih semuanya.
Thank you everyone.
Bye.